I've just dropped my daughter off at the station to go to school. And as I dropped her off, there was a guy standing at the station just staring at her, but not just her, at other women too. This kind of behaviour has to stop. I just find it absolutely outrageous that my girls tell me that the most common demographic group of men that harasses them and hassles them and that they find the creepiest and the most sinister and the most threatening are men of my age, men of 50, men who should know better. I mean, all men should know better of all ages. But I have a real worry. I know we always go on, all the debate is about schools need to, educate and all this kind of stuff. Poor teachers, they've got enough on their hands as it is. And no matter how much a school can promote respect towards women amongst its male students, if they're going home to a toxic masculine environment where women are treated like they're just a piece of meat, how are you ever going to be able to impact or affect change in that situation? And I have to just say one more time, when Nadia was talking about the fact that all men are potential rapists, I can't believe that intelligent, educated people couldn't understand what she was talking about. She obviously isn't saying that all men are rapists. The word there is potential. She wasn't even saying that all men are potential rapists in their souls or in their hearts. Not at all. They're not. I'm not. But I also know a lot of men who would be considered, non-threatening, agreeable sort of chaps. If driving along in cars, pointing at women and saying, "Oh, what do you think of her?" or "What would you give her?" When that happens, if you get into a car and a cab driver or someone, or if you're in a bar and a friend of yours, someone says something that's deeply offensive to women, I beg you, as I did with this chap who I was working with, push back and say, that's someone's daughter. That could be my daughter. I remember shutting someone up when they did it to some girl at traffic lights, and I said, that could be my daughter. What are you saying? I don't want my daughter to be looked at like that by someone like you. So when Nadia says every man is a potential rapist, she's talking about when a woman is out in the world and she is feeling threatened or she doesn't feel safe, she has to assume, because she doesn't know the man walking behind her. So she has to assume the worst. Just like lots of boys and men often have to assume the worst. If they go out at night, clubbing or whatever, they have to assume the worst, that a lot of violence happens towards boys too. So if it's all right for men to assume the worst when they go out, why can it not be all right for women to assume the worst? Threaded through society is an inference and a suggestion that it's kind of women have to take responsibility for this shit when it's men. I'm not saying it's an easy task to turn men around. It isn't. But I get really annoyed, really fucking annoyed when women who should know better want to talk about the fact that there are good men. There are men who wouldn't do this. Let's talk about the men who aren't like this. We know there are men who are not like this. This isn't the moment to talk about those men. Those men have the privilege of society every minute of their lives. We're talking about women, and I don't get it when people suggest, oh, but not all men are like that. Not all boys are like that. We know that. That's great. And if your boys and if your men in your life aren't like that, then kind of sit pretty with it. That's great. But they can also still take responsibility when they're out on the street. I had a message from someone saying, why should I cross the road? It's like saying, why should I wear a mask in COVID? It's the least you can do, because you're not, aggressive or a sexual deviant or whatever, but the woman who's walking in front of you doesn't. And I don't understand what people don't get about that. So at the smallest, lowest levels, men everywhere can do things, whether it be crossing a road, avoiding, not staring if some pretty woman is sitting opposite you, not looking because it makes someone feel uncomfortable. And in all stages, I presume all these men of about my age who are putting out this sort of atmosphere of I presume you've got mothers, grandmothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, nieces, wives. Just for a minute, superimpose the face of any one of those on someone you're looking at, beeping at, whistling at, leering at, rubbing up against on the tube. Just for a minute, do that. Just for a minute.